Hello, 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 hello. Break for the noise. Break for the noise. Hope everybody's having a very good day. Hope you're having a very good evening. This won't be a long live. I don't think so. Nah, I don't think so. But I hope you all are having a very good day. Hope you're having a very good start of your week. And man, it's um we here. Give shouts out to those who have made themselves known. It's always appreciated to come listen to little old me. DMO, how you doing, Miss Lady? Miss Murray, how you doing? How you doing? Hope all is well. I'm glad you are out the sick and the shut in this. I hope you caught the end of the other show last night. Had a I thought it was a very good message. It was so good. I had to write down some of the stuff I was saying. It was good. I might have to start doing quotes and stuff. Yeah, it was dope. But anyway, here to talk about nerd stuff. I guess you can call it. Let me put a banner up or something like oh yeah, let's put up this. We just chilling. Um, yeah, yeah. Here to talk about the nerd stuff, anime, manga, little video game talk. They had some PS5 and Xbox had the big showcase. Yep. Had a big showcase this past week. Want to talk about that, and we'll get up on out of here. It ain't gonna be too long of a show. I did, invite my fellow straw hats. I don't know if they'll show. They may be busy in other places in other spaces doing what they do, but anyway, I'm here. For my One Piece fans, we talked about this last week. Some of my kind of issues I have with the current state of One Piece, and I was looking at spoilers for the upcoming chapter that's coming out very soon in regards to Luffy getting involved in what's going on with Elbaf in a more direct way with Emu. And for those who are new to the manga or the anime, Luffy being the main character of One Piece, the protagonist, and Emu being the antagonist. We see this play out, whether it be in comic books. Hell, it kind of plays out in the Bible. Good versus evil, and that kind of stuff. But I was thinking, like I was, checking out the spoilers, and this is something confrontation that has been much hyped for years. And this, all stories kind of lead to this, that final battle of good versus evil. And I'm just not excited enough about this, and I think it's going to be. I don't want to say it's a bit of a letdown when you compare it to other major mangas and final battles and that kind of stuff. Is I just feel like it's a bit overhyped. I don't think it's going to be able to deliver. When I look at peak um peak confrontations in regards to the One Piece manga, I can think Luffy versus Don Flamingo. For me, peak the top so far as confrontations to be, as far as like the gravitas of it, the actual battle of it, and just the importance of the battle right now is got what's going on, Slander. Uh, for me, peak One Piece battle is got to be Luffy versus Kaido, and that whole Wano arc. So far for me, that's got to be peak, because you know the battle meant a whole lot, and it was done in the right way. As far as like for those who are into this genre of stuff, power scaling is very important. And when you look at what One Piece is currently doing with Emu, like, I mean, he was already god tier as far as power, with the level of influence he has over, he pretty much runs the world government. Then you look at the powers bestowed upon the five elders, and now what they're doing in Elbaf, this is I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. This I don't even call it an upgrade. Like, I wish you could get a full blown explanation of what his powers really are, and it will make it a little bit more plausible than just you know it- throwing stuff to the wind and seeing it stick. This whole turning the giants into demons and books, and pulling out guns, like it seems like Oda is just trying to feel out Emu's powers, much like um you see that in the other mangas, but it's for me it's more egregious here at One Piece because you had plenty enough time. I mean, this is a manga that's been going on for well over close to 2 decades. At this point, this is a manga that's been going on for so long. You had enough time to kind of flesh out what his skills are, his power, the power scale, and all of that. Yes, we know he's the top, but do you really have to be 20 years into the manga, oh, now he can do this and now he can do that? Like it's like I said, it's giving Otis throwing stuff to the wall, seeing if it sticks. You're not ready for Gear and Sanji. Listen, Slander, even with Gear 5, like Gear 5, for Luffy, it seems when you look at how he's been power scaled throughout the manga, it looked like and it feels like much more natural progression of his power, to where we're seeing the upper limits of his devil fruit. And when you look at was Emu, like we don't even know what your devil fruit is. It's We haven't really been given a solid explanation. And we're talking about we're 20 years in. We're 20 years in. No one telling tales of his power. Was like, take for example, um the Naruto manga. Now we got a lot of, like, background stories and side stories in regards to Uchiha Madara, what his power level was. Even the first Hokage, we got glimpses of what their power level was. With Emu, it's been all a mystery. I get you want to save it for a big reveal, but man, we're 20 years in. We're 20 years in. And we talked about this on the last episode of I don't even know what to call this show. Just nerd talk. I don't know. I gotta come up with a title for it. But we talked about this on the last episode. Like, you have too much lore to really kind of dive into. But now you're just throwing more stuff into the mix. Like, what is Emu's skills? What is his power? Like, how far does it extend to where he's in taking over other people's characters, and displaying a skill set that is, to my knowledge, and I'm a avid One Piece fan, that is just he's just, you're adding skills that we haven't seen, and it's getting ridiculous at this point, and it's almost becoming real comical with it. And one thing I've always appreciated about manga is the fact that it's always had like a more serious tone with it. Yes, there's been comedy bits in manga to kind of alleviate moments and stuff like that from time to time, but it's always had more of a serious tone because it's more built towards the adult reader. And I think Oda is kind of struggling with this Elbath arc for me. Struggling with this Elbath arc for me because it doesn't seem to have that adult tone to it. I mean, you're dealing with an audience that has been loyal readers for, like I said, going on 2 decades. Loyal readers who expect, who have grown with the series, and expected to have a much more serious and mature tone. Like, I don't get the comedy, damn near every other chapter. I'm just not getting it. This is supposed to be, winding down to the final confrontation, world government versus the pirates, and the stakes there that are on the line. I'm just, it just doesn't feel that serious. When you look at they got the devil fruit. Listen, Slant, I don't like explanation. I mean, we're 20 years in. We're 20 years in. We don't know if Emu is immortal. We don't know if Emu was really around, before the Void Century. Was he the original back? Like, we don't know. We don't know anything about where he comes from. None of that stuff. We just know, based on interactions we've seen with him throughout the years. He has a a distaste for characters with the letter D. Has a fixation on Joy Boy. We don't know what that what the history is behind that, and I'm just not feeling it. I'm gonna be honest. I'm just not feeling it. I'm not liking the direction that the manga is going. Not to say that I'm not going to read it, because you commit to something for that long, and you've been reading it, you've been enjoying the animes, you've been enjoying the movies that have come out, and the different kind of stuff in media in regards to One Piece. Listen, it's still part of the big four, but it's slowly dropping down as we kind of wind down. If we're winding down, it doesn't even seem like we're winding down. Like, you would think Elbath would be, I guess, like the final arc leading into the final arc, but Oda seems like he's got about 5 or 6 more arcs left in him, to where it's dragging it out. And I think the hype for the final competition between Luffy and Emu. I'm just not. I'm just not. It doesn't feel the same when you look at other mangas in regards to, hey, we leading up to the final fight. Sometimes the final fight disappoints because the anticipation has been so high, and I think One Piece is kind of falling into that trap, to where you know, Emu and Luffy is the final battle. I think that's pretty much clear to anybody who's been a follower and reader of the manga. It has all been leading up to that, but it just doesn't seem to have that same gravitas. Like, two bulls heading, two trains are about to collide, and it just doesn't seem that we've taken too many twists, too many turns, too much stuff kind of left unexplained, and we'll give you a glimpse and then we'll move on. It's just too much going on. I think he's broadened his scope of the story way too much for me, way too much for me, and I'm just not. I'm just kind of losing interest in it. And I think once we get to that point, whenever that is, next year, next year, the year after, who knows with Oda. He's been, I'm not saying dragging this story out, because it has been a very good story thus far, but at points it's kind of dragged out, stretched it out, to where it's too many strings to follow, too many side streets, too many different avenues the story has kind of taken. It's making me lose interest. It just doesn't feel the same. I mean, look at Dragon Ball. Like, anytime it was time for the main character Goku, for those who don't know, when it was time for him to have like that big battle, you kind of built up to it, and the battle delivered. The fight delivered. When you talk about him versus Vegeta, you talk about him versus Frieza, or him versus Boo. I'm just talking about the Dragon Ball Z series. Um, it was a proper build, and delivered. Um, the fight delivered. Gave you a little bit of lore, but not too enough to where you would go wandering down a different kind of path, and feel lost when the moment came. And I think for me, you know, it- I like that as a reader. And whether you read or you watch the anime, you like that. Hey, we're building up to the climax, and that is the climax, and it delivers. When you look at One Piece, I just feel like Luffy versus Emu is not going to deliver on the same kind of level. For me, I don't think it's going to deliver on the same kind of level. Will it be good? I anticipate it to be okay. But right now I'm not putting it in the same class as a Naruto versus Sasuke, or um, you know, Frieza versus Goku. I'm not putting it in that same weight class. It's just not. I mean, you even look at Bleach. Ichigo. When his major fights, you led up to it, in the moment delivered. I think One Piece is going to fail miserably in regards to comparing it to the other big four, the other big three. When you're talking about leading up to the climax of the story, this is the penultimate fight. This is what we've all been building up towards, and One Piece has had so much longer to build up to it, that you would think it would deliver. Like, people have been anticipating this final battle for the longest, and it is just not. It's too many strings, and it's like I'm distracted. And when it should be the build up being, they're the focus. This is what it's leading towards. Um, and I'm not feeling it with One Piece. I'm gonna be honest with you. Yes, I'm gonna continue to read, because I enjoy it. but to me, is the build up has been kind of whack. I'm gonna be honest with you, been kind of whack. It's just, eh. Am I really looking forward to it? No, I'm more or less looking at more. Um, Hell, give me a art explaining, what really went on during the Void Century. Give me an art, explaining, some of this lore that you just got just sitting out here, um, and people have been theorizing and trying to guess what it is. Like, provide some clarity, to your reader. Oh, you're not ready for that end game moment when that real shows up to help. It's going there, slander. Um, it's going to lead up to the rest of the Straw Hats and other pirates on the crew and other characters, such as the Giants and stuff. Maybe the Buccaneers and Kuma and them get like it's going there, like one major final fight. But when you talk about building up, your protagonist and your antagonist is, yeah, you have like the side skirmishes and stuff like that. But when you compare, I mean, I'm just comparing it to the other big three. It was the build up to, Goku. Let's say Goku going to Namek, like going, he was training and becoming more powerful, and he, kind of got stronger and stronger until it was time to actually face Frieza, and then the fight delivered. Um, then the fight delivered. When you look at Bleach, Ichigo leading up to fighting Byakuya, leading up, even the Thousand Year Blood arc, like you led up to the final fight in the proper way to where you was so focused on, okay, this is the final battle, and you wasn't distracted about, or what's going on over here, what's going on over there. Like, think about it. You get Luffy and Emu as the as the final battle. Like, you got other characters. How you doing, my opinion? Welcome back. um you got other characters that people have become fans of and want to see how does their arc end. And you don't want them to be like, I think Zoro deserves his own kind of final battle. Sanji deserves his own kind of final battle. Not just, we're here to just help Luffy, push Luffy over the top by assisting him against evil. Like, it's just not, you don't build up to your final battle like that. You know, it's mano a mano, one on one, and this is what sells the fight. You and the side characters, have their roles, in that and progressing the story. But when you look at One Piece, a lot of the side characters feel like main characters to a lot of people. They become that attached to them. Hey, honey, you too. Okay, hush. I know you in other places. I know. Um, but like I said, for me, I'm more leaning towards it's going to be overhyped. It's going to be overhyped. It's too many moving pieces for just just the casual reader. I mean, think about it, if you've been reading from day one, there's so many unanswered questions. Though when you get there, like, well, what happened to this, or what about that, or what about this, or what about that? You kind of left that thread open. What's down this side street? What's I'm just not, and I get, you as a writer, you want to draw the story out as much as you can, but sometimes and especially in today's society, you don't need it to drag out that long. You don't. So do you think one of the straw has you got to die to bring it back? I don't even think it's about them dying, slander. I mean, it's too. It's for me. It's too many open threads that is hard for the casual reader to connect. Even people who have been reading it have been like, "Oh, what is this?" So I mean, I like to use the God Valley incident. You gave us a glimpse. We've heard about it for years. This is this play this event that happened on this island, and people really don't talk about it. It was hush hush, and we finally got like a small peek, and it was like, yeah, that was enough, and we moving on. We're moving on. It was like, yeah, it's part of Kuma's backstory, and that's all you need to know. Like, no, it's so many um things that was like left to the unknown. And I think for me, it was like, as a reader, like when I get to the final fight, I like a lot of stuff to be wrapped up. I like a lot of stuff to be explained. But I got to show that love. Listen, appreciate it, Bro. Appreciate it. I know. I listen. I know. I know. But yeah, it's a lot of, you expect a lot of loose threads to be tied up to where you're solely focused on the final battle, the final match, the end of the story. Um, it's like watching a movie. Like, a movie does it, perfectly, in the span of 2 hours. Like, hey, this is, loose threads and stuff we're kind of tying up, but by the time we get to the end, you're not left questioning what happened with this or what happened with that or what happened with this. It's resolved, and you're solely focused on this is the climax of the story. All attention is here. Um, and the minor stuff and the stuff on the periphery, it has been resolved, it's been explained, and you're focused on the end of the saga. And One Piece for me is failing at that. It is failing at that right now. Like I said, I'm still going to read. I'm more of a disgruntled fan right now. I'm still going to read, still going to follow, but I think it's going to be overhyped, and I think it's going to fall. It's going to fall short unless Oda comes out and kind of get to spend time with. This makes appreciate it to your vote, but I'm just not. Listen, I'm not feeling it. But moving on into other, kind of news. Very much looking forward to the Demon Slayer movie coming out. I'm, try to find it on Fire Stick when it does release. I don't mind looking at subtitles. Hell, if you're a fan of anime, you've grown accustomed to watching and reading the subtitles. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a Demon Slayer has done a very good job as far as taking what the manga has given them and properly displaying it in anime form. That has been a beautiful marriage, to say the least. One Piece has gotten better at that over the last couple of years. Naruto did a fantastic job. Same thing with Bleach, and of course Dragon Ball. And I think a lot of mangas that have been translated to the anime form have done a very good job of properly depicting what happened and giving life to words. But I'm looking forward to the Demon Slayer. 'Cause Demon Slayer has done a very good job. Um, Demon Slayer has done a very good job of translating into where even if you didn't read the manga, you kind of understand history. You understand what's going on. You're not lost in the sauce. So I think to see them kind of close it out with the Infinity Castle arc, which will be in movie form. I think it premieres this month or next month, internationally, and of course, translated. I don't want to say in like August or September, but they have done a very good. Demon Slayer is so familiar. I'm gonna go check it out. That's when I was. Yeah, you can check it out. DMO, Demon Slayer. I want to say it's still on Netflix. And shout out to Netflix, who was slow to kind of start creeping into the anime field, but have gone full blown and fully embracing it. It's been one of the the best categories that they have on Netflix. Netflix has done a very good job of not only bringing those from outside the studios but doing their own kind of anime. So yeah, you can find Demon Slayer on, and you can catch up with Demon Slayer to where is that currently. Like I said, and when you watch the anime, like you don't have to you don't have to feel lost. Like you can watch it as a brand new fan, somebody who didn't read the manga but is like enjoying the story for what it is. So yeah, Netflix has done a very good job. Demon Slayer is awesome. Probably one of the best anime series to come out in, I would be honest with you, like the past decade, as far as like presenting it in a form to where a casual person who stumbles across it can quickly understand what's going on and not feel like, well, how do we get here? Um, so kudos to that studio that does that. Cool movie night. Straw and Sinners. DMO. Listen, I'm not gonna watch Straw. I don't fuck with Tyler Perry. Um, I don't. And there's nothing against him personally. I just don't fuck with his brand of media. I'm not a fan of every time you have a production or you do a movie, is it's got to be some kind of struggle. And I get you maybe talking to a particular demographic, but dude, like everybody is not down and out. Everybody is not struggling. I would like to see you kind of branch out and expand your horizons a little bit. I just don't like Tyler Perry movies. I just don't. I haven't been a fan for years. I just get tired. I know once he drops something, if it's not a historical piece, which is few and far between, it's a story of some struggle, a single mama, a single daddy, or something of that nature, and they going through it, and they prevail, come out on top. At the I'm just not a fan of it. Listen, okay, I get it. Yeah, listen, I get it. And for those who are fans of Tyler Perry Productions, listen, kudos to him for hustling and creating the empire that he has. But I have no role in that. I want no part of that. You can't, you can I can't get down with it. And I've been seeing, people post, reviews and their thoughts of Straw, but just for me, Tyler Perry's, I'm gonna give you the same stuff, recycle it, change a location, change a job, but it's gonna be some form of black struggle in here. And I'm like, expand your horizons. Like, why can't Tyler Perry give us a horror movie, or Tyler Perry can't give us a action movie? It's got to be black struggle. It's got to be black struggle. And I was this was a while back. I was like fell into a Twitter feed, and they were talking about Tyler Perry. Like, well, how come he focuses solely mainly on black women, and nothing wrong with that. But they was like, how come he got to get dressed up as a woman, and why couldn't what's his name, Uncle Joe been the main character he sold his stuff on? I had to think about that for a minute. Kind of questionable, very questionable. Yeah, I feel guilty. That no, you ain't got to feel guilty. DMO, listen. Some people like his story. Some people like his character. Some people like the theme. I would say back in the day when I was first introduced to him, I liked the plays because it was like comedy, and it wasn't so focused on the struggle. It's like, okay, we here to have a good time. It's a message behind it. But the movies and the shows, like for me, it's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. It's always somebody down and out. Someone is just some kind of tragedy, and the black experience is not built on tragedy. It's not built on everybody's not struggling like that. Like I just don't like the image of black people being portrayed as we're down and out and we're destitute. And it's like every movie. It's like it's copy and paste, man. Copy and paste, but people buy it. The money and support. Listen, people buy it and they soak it up. Whatever. I'm not a fan of it. I want to do a little video game news. Do a little video game news before we kind of get up out of here and close out. Like I said, it ain't gonna be a long show. Um, but I was watching on IGN. For those who don't know what IGN is kind of like the primary platform for video game news. But I was watching the PS5 showcase and watching the Xbox showcase, and there's some games that's coming out that's got a little buzz, and I'm might be interested in trying. I will say this about the video game industry: a lot of major studios are, um, I would say, taking L's over the last, especially over the last couple of years. Outside of GTA, which is a brand all unto itself, I don't think GTA can make a bad game. I don't really think GTA is one of those franchises that has been kind of untouchable, much like God of War. Um, some people would say Assassin's Creed. Without they've had a couple missteps, but those are trusted and tried and true trusted brands of video games. But I was like watching the showcase, and a lot of independent studios are coming up and making some very very good games. This is a game. Is this our new safe space? Yeah, Miss Murph, we'll see. Uh, well, I mean, Slant, it's a couple of them. Like I'm into. I like some of the RPGs that are kind of coming out. I'm not really into the looter shooter type brands. Not really into the looter shooter type brands, but I do like some of the RPGs that are kind of coming out. They are finally bringing the remake of Final Fantasy to Xbox. So I'm excited for that. Um, I'm excited to get my hands on that on the Xbox platform. But you get Mind Eye. I might get Mind Eye. Slander. This kind of some of the gameplay I've seen from it has been very GTA like. And I like I like games because GTA, when you think about it, GTA is just like its own kind of genre. It's action, but at the same time, it's kind of a RPG. Where we're telling a story and you're following along with the story, and you become so engrossed in the characters. I might get mine's. Mine's eye looks all right. I'm not sure if it's going to be buggy. I think comparing it to GTA is to a degree is fair, but then again, it's unfair because GTA is a brand that has been built up for so long that it's almost GTA can't fail. The time and money they put into GTA, it can't fail. Mind's Eye looks like um uh, it takes from that model, and I think it'll be pretty good. I think it'll be pretty good. I think um it could help Mind's Eye because I'm not really a fan of what the story is, and it should flesh out the story a little bit more. But hopefully you have to wait to get the game to kind of get into that. But I think Mind's Eye is going to be a good play. I think Mind's Eye is definitely going to be a good play. I like I like the fact that a lot of independent studios are kind of coming up with games that people have when once they play it, they have been surprised by it. Like what I'm still playing, still trying to I'm in game now, but Claire Obscure, RPG, you surprised a lot of people. Surprised me when when I got it. I was like, yeah, this is a turn-based RPG, but it's got action elements in it. It has been a very for me. It's right now it's game of the year. I'll give you a review. Yeah, I did finally get to play Wukong. I'm kind of dabbling with that. Because with me, I like to I don't want to say 100% a game before I move on, but I do like to you know kind of get into a game. I'm more of a completionist. When I'm playing, I'm more of a completionist. Like let me get as many trophies as I can, as many achievements as I can, and then once I've kind of you know, uh, taking all I can. But I've gotten into Wukong, and I'm like the last couple weeks, get into Wukong the last couple weeks. Um, it has been a different kind of transition. When you're talking about going from different styles and genres of games, so I haven't really been focused on Wukong like that. I haven't like deep dived into it. Just kind of dabbled with it from time to time since I got it. But I anticipate, if I don't dive into Mind's Eye, definitely dive more into Wukong and kind of get into that. It plays well, looks good. Um, I'm kind of curious because I try to avoid spoilers for it. I want to get into, the lore and the story of the game. I think that for me, being a fan of RPGs, I really like a game with a good story. It can be flashy and have great graphics and kind of the mechanics can play well. But if it doesn't really have a strong enough story, I just for me it's like like I'm just playing to be playing it. I'm not really in completionist mode if if the story is not grabbing me. Like I'm just not like that with certain games. But it's got a good story. Okay, well, I mean, like I said, I'm kind of getting into it. and we'll see where it kind of goes. And when I do finish it, and because I like to, if I start a game, I really do like to, I'm a completionist. So I like to get, achievements and all that other stuff. Every weapon, piece of gear that is available to be found, I like to do that. But right now, trying to finish up Clay Obscure. I'm in the end game, and I'm down to the final boss, not the final secret boss. And I'm trying all kind of strategies and builds and setups to kind of do that. So once I finish that, I'll definitely dive into Wukong. Definitely will be playing Mind's Eye. Like I said, it's giving me very much GTA feel. I want to say the head producer or director of Mind's Eye used to be part of the GTA team. So I think if it's got a good enough story, I think fans can kind of look past the GTA comparisons in regards to Mind's Eye, and let it stand on its own. And then the stuff that I've seen from the story so far, as far as like previews and all that, it looks different, but I want to take like a deeper dive into it once it comes out. Because if it's got, like I said, if it's got a good story, it'll do well. It'll do well. The gameplay looks, like I said, looks very GTA-esque, but we'll see. We'll see. Definitely looking forward to that. Like I said, there's some other games that are coming out, PS5 and Xbox. Like from some people may be because they're not coming from major studios, but I'm looking forward to it because some of those under the radar type games have done very well, and they play well once you get a hold on them. But I just when you don't have the machine behind you like a EA or something like that, or a Rockstar, people tend to like kind of overlook it. And I like the fact that these independent studios are coming out with games and building their own brands from scratch. So I'm definitely looking forward towards that. What else is going on in Nerdland, as some people like to call it, Nerdland? That is about it for now. I think I want to go see John Wick Ballerina. I don't know, is it going to be any good? I'm kind of skeptical about seeing it. I will say this: I went to go see Mission Impossible, Final Reckoning. Very, very good. Very, very good. I think I went into it with some skepticism because you're talking about a series of movies, and it's just a lot of lore and background. But Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, with the level of action, and you got into the story of it. On top of just having good action sequences, it was a very good story. Behind it, very, like I said, very, very good movie. Probably one of the best Mission Impossibles I've seen in recent memory. Very, very good. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but it's definitely worth the buy. Definitely worth the buy. Definitely going to worth to go see it in the theaters. You'll be engrossed in the story, even if you're not a person who's seen previous Mission Impossible movies. Much like the missus, she's haven't seen them, but she was on the edge of her seat in the theater, which is rare. Which is rare when we're talking about going to see action movies, because it's like you seen one action movie, you've seen them all, but it was a very good story, very good action sequences, kept you on the edge of your seat, anticipating what was coming next. So definitely go check that out. So check out Bring Her Back. Is Murphy you still here? Yeah, I mean Murphy, but yeah, this is to answer your question for yeah, this is definitely well, me, every space that I'm in is safe, but yeah, this is something different, break from the noise. We'll see. I don't know if this will become a regular thing. We'll see. I I would like to do a show with the Straw Hat Crew, but getting schedules and stuff like that is a bit challenging. Is a bit challenging, but we'll see. We'll try to work it out. Um, it's always a good time when we get together and talk. And ain't talking about people. But yeah, um, let me get my behind up out of here because brother got to go eat dinner and all of that good stuff. Now, thank you for taking the time out to listen. I don't have a close. I like having closing phrases. But I don't have one for this show yet. So if you have any ideas, feel free to leave a comment or whatever, and we'll try to we'll try to pick it up again next week. Like I said, I'll reach out to the crew and kind of see what the schedules are, and hopefully we can get together and kind of give you guys a full panel to listen to, not just me, and all of that. Thank you for taking the time to listen to a little old me. But yeah, we'll do this again. We'll try to shoot for, like I said, next Monday. And like I said, I'll get with the crew and see what what the schedule is kind of looking like, and we'll kind of go from there. If not, then stay tuned for more nerd news. Recommendations. New Demon Slayer coming out, Mind's Eye. And if you, like I said, if you want to get into the world of anime and manga, Netflix is a very good place to start. They have a lot of good series, a lot of independent series. Netflix has their own Netflix series that you can kind of get into and start there. And like I said, we'll pick it up another time. Y'all have a good day. Y'all have a good week. I hope all is well. Hope you stay blessed. And I'm out.